This is Greg Penglis for Action Radio with Founding Moments, insights into our founding documents, sponsored by Santa Rosa Volunteers here in Santa Rosa County, Florida. Santa Rosa Volunteers is available at their website, SRV1776.com. That's SRV1776.com. A caller last week brought up Federalist number 46. This is from the Federalist Papers, which are a series of essays written by our founders explaining and arguing for the ratification of the Constitution. Federalist number 46 was written by James Madison, published Tuesday, January 29th, 1788, and addressed to the people of the state of New York. The caller said this is the Federalist paper that gives power to the idea that the states and the people could take up arms to control the federal government if they exceeded their legitimate delegated powers in controlling the states and the people. Not specifically to this caller, but there are those who view our situation in the extreme of either ballots or bullets. In other words, if the electoral process doesn't produce good government, then maybe, as Jefferson once said, the tree of liberty has to be refreshed with the blood of patriots and tyrants. The question, though, is when such force should be undertaken. The founders saw force as a last resort and limited to the force necessary to preserve liberty. In the case of England, after all other measures were exhausted, the only possible resolution was total war, a war that was forced upon us. That was the exception until the total war between the states. We will consider that in a separate episode. The title of Federalist 46 is The Influence of the State and Federal Governments Compared. Madison determined that the states would have more natural affinity to the people because of the closer connections in a state versus the distant federal government, unless the federal government proves the better and more popular government to the states. I don't think Madison would have said that if he had any idea how far the federal government has illegally exceeded the powers delegated to it by the states in the Constitution. Nor would he have predicted the move and acceptance towards a national government, which is top-down, as opposed to federal, which has co-equal yet competing parts. Regarding the use of arms, as the caller mentioned, Madison said, "The only refuge left for those who prophesy the downfall of the state governments is the visionary supposition that the federal government may previously accumulate a military force for the projects of ambition." In other words, the states can stand against the feds unless you believe the feds will raise an army to rule the states. To counter any such imagined fear, Madison said, "Let a regular army, fully equal to the resources of the country, be formed, and let it be entirely at the devotion of the federal government. Still, it would not be going too far to say that the state governments, with the people on their side, would be able to repel the danger." This supposes that there is no gun control. The states have command of the National Guard, and that the federal government is still subordinate to the states and actually complies with the limitations of the Constitution. Unfortunately, none of that is true today. Madison also says, besides the advantage of being armed, which the Americans possess over the people of almost every other nation, the existence of subordinate governments to which the people are attached and by which the militia officers are appointed forms a barrier against the enterprises of ambition more insurmountable than any which a simple government of any form can admit of. Again, the federal government and the national military is huge, especially when state National Guards are federalized, and that combination is way more powerful than any state militia or militia of the people, which is not to say they will be used against the states or the people, but they could. And then the question of who and how many would participate is opened up. Clearly, Madison believed that the power of the states, combined with the people, were, as his country was designed, way more powerful than the federal government, and that in itself would be more than enough to preclude any action by the feds to reduce the power of either the states or the people. The mistake Madison could not foresee was the explosive growth of the federal government resulting from such unconstitutional policies as a federal income tax, and a host of unconstitutional powers that the federal judiciary has refused to declare unconstitutional. This is why at Action Radio we push a policy of defense equality, where no unit of any government or law enforcement entity is better armed than the people in their jurisdiction. And that covers a town and their local police, or a nation and all the armed agents and departments of the federal government, including especially the FBI. The answer to the caller's question is not to take Federalist number 46 and use that as the motivation to build up arms to control the federal government, or use the arms in that fashion. The real answer is to disarm the federal government of all weapons, agents, agencies, and departments not specifically authorized by the Constitution. That would be the entire federal government except for the military, which we want to be armed as well as possible to defend this nation. Our greatest danger is not from our military, just the opposite. They are our greatest protectors. The greatest danger is the arrogance, accumulation, and use of power, wealth, and arms by the federal government against the people without regard to the states, and with the so far compliance of the states to be subordinate to the feds. Madison was right in the system of government and power balance he described in Federalist 46, so long as the conditions remained the same and the feds complied with the Constitution. They didn't. So the question for us is, are we, or will we, be at a point where the use of arms is necessary by the people for the security of free states and against the feds? Or is there another way, or many other ways? At Action Radio, we believe that we the people can change the conditions back to the system Madison described, but it's going to take a huge effort to take the unconstitutional powers, arms, and wealth from the feds to restore the system we should have had all along. A source for this report is federalistpapers.org. That's federalistpapers.org. This is Greg Penglis for Action Radio with Founding Moments, sponsored by Santa Rosa Volunteers. Their website, again, is SRV1776.com. That's SRV1776.com. Please share this report to anyone who needs it.